What's good, YouTube? Quinn Wade basketball analysis coming to y'all with a quick video. Today we're going to talk about the Los Angeles Clippers, a team that has Jerry West at the helm of all their decision making. Doc Rivers was a guy that can coach. He was a guy that can get the best out of his players, put them in position to succeed. And even with a core of Austin Rivers, DeAndre Jordan, and Lou Williams, limited players and one-sided players, um, he was able to get them close to the playoffs. And Jerry West lost Chris Paul, got a haul back for him, and then ended up losing his second player, Blake Griffin. Obviously, you want to keep those players because you with them they were a championship contender. I remember in 2015, I was reading all these magazines and they said it's time for the Clippers to win. They think the Clippers gonna take over, and now we in 2018, and Blake and Chris Paul is no longer on this roster. That just throwing it back. This team went from Lob City to now we're taking it more serious. To now both of them players on different teams, and it looks like DeAndre Jordan will be too. Um, that's what we're gonna start the video off on this rebuilding, because DeAndre Jordan, even though he might not be a superstar player, even though he might not be one of the most dominant players, he is a player that takes up a lot of their salary cap. He's getting over $20 million a year for a guy that only been to the All-Star team once and can't even get you 20 points a game or dominate a game consistently on either end of the floor. And that's the first step. Is they going to keep DeAndre because he is a guy that knows his role and knows what to do, but at the same time you're committing a lot of money to a guy that you know what you're going to get from him, but you're giving him 25 to 30 million that he can't take you over the hump. Especially as the best player on this team. I don't think any of us would say DeAndre Jordan is the best player on this team, but he's the highest paid player to me on this team. So that's one thing that we have to definitely talk about when you're talking about rebuilding this team. I feel like Jerry West did the best he could to try to get a lot of salaries off. Actually, DeAndre Jordan is the highest paid player on the team with 22 million. Then is Danilo Gallinari with 20 million. And I don't know if you can win a championship with Danilo Gallinari and DeAndre Jordan being his highest paid players, especially because Danilo fell off significantly. Even though he is a guy that can play the 3 or the 4 and space out the floor and handle the ball a little bit, and that's what everybody wants. He hasn't been able to stay healthy. His jump shot has fallen off. His three ball has fallen off. And DeAndre Jordan, as your highest paid player, even though 22 million ain't that bad nowadays, especially people getting paid 30 to 35 million. A guy that's not even a perennial all-star, I definitely couldn't see you paying him 22 million and trying to build a championship team in the future with him taking so much of the cap, and same with Danilo. But Danilo contract is obviously going to go down a little bit as he continues to play with this Clippers team. His contract we thought was untradeable, but he was able to get traded last year. And, he is an integral part of this team as long as he's on the team. But he's 29 years old, and he hasn't been a big difference maker when he's been on the court, and he hasn't been on the court enough. You still got solid players like Montrezl Harrell. You got a guy on a decent contract in Tobias Harris that's 25. You know what you're going to get out of him, and he can play the 3 or the 4. He's a better Danilo Gallinari at this point, and he's, a couple years away from being 30, but that's still 5 years from now, basically 4 now, but that's a significant amount of time to get a guy at Tobias Harris caliber for 16 million. That's not that bad. Austin Rivers is a guy that showed that he can be more than what he has shown. Obviously, he was a top 10 pick in the draft. A lot of people was high on him. A lot of people say he's going to have a successful career. Didn't really turn out that way in the beginning, but going to the Clippers has really allowed him to show more of his skill set, show more of his talent, and he was able to do that even more with Chris Paul being gone and Patrick Beverley being injured. They needed somebody to take that point guard and that shooting guard position, and he took an opportunity and he took a chance to show himself and show these people I can play, I can score, I can take over games. And he did that this season, and you definitely got to give him credit. He is a combo guard, more of a scorer than a passer, but he can knock down that 3 ball. He can create off the dribble, and he can get to that paint, and he's a decent free throw shooter. You also have Lou Williams is a guy that they extended to a contract, and so same with Doc Rivers. He's going to be here for a while unless they fire him randomly. But when you give a guy a contract extension, most likely want them to stay around. And Lou Williams looked like he was a perfect fit under the tutelage of Doc Rivers, a guy that can handle the ball, shoot tough shots, create tough shots, shooting late in the shot clock, and he has became a better playmaker as he has gotten older. Seeing that coming off the bench, just getting a lot of points ain't enough, especially when you're trying to contribute to winning. They're going to need you to impact the game on multiple levels, especially now you get a lot of hybrids and a lot of hybrid players that can do multiple things, and it's good to see Lou Williams adding that three ball, being more aggressive, but also finding his teammates, whether it's DeAndre Jordan in the pick and roll or kicking out the shooters or even doing dump offs. His IQ has gotten higher, and you can credit that to being around great coaches, great players. But not only that, just reading the game and seeing that you can become a better player. And he has had his best season of his career last year, with this season. And at the end of the day, none of us seen that really coming. We knew he could play. We knew what he could do. But this is the best season he has ever had. And for the money that he signed for, he took a massive pay cut for the long-term guarantee under his contract. And he's on one of the better contracts, even if they wanted to trade him. Lou Williams has become an asset at this point, and he's only 31. Ain't like he's a 34, 35-year-old. He's only 31 years old, and he showed that he still has potential to get even better depending on the minutes and the usage of him. Everybody else, you have solid role players and Patrick Beverly, Avery Bradley, obviously going to be off the books because I don't see them bringing them back. Sam Decker's on a rookie contract, also like Montrezl Harrell. You have Boban, that's a $7 million guy. Obviously, Austin Rivers is on a solid contract. Teodosic is on a solid contract. So they don't really have any guaranteed superstars on this roster. They don't have none at all. And the guys that is on the rookie contracts, I don't see them becoming one. But one thing they will have in the future is cap space. So even though the Clippers have been bad at getting talent, besides through the draft like Elton Brand, Corey Maggette, and Blake Griffin that attracted Chris Paul, that's where they're going to have to go this year, guys, is either they're going to have to try to get somebody that wants to leave and trade for them and build around them, or they're going to have to go down and do it like they did with Blake Griffin. Either they stay competitive, but they have two picks that are very high, especially for a team that almost made the playoffs. And they have some solid potential players. Talk about Danilo Gallinari and Wesley Johnson. They have potential to draft a guy like Kevin Knox, an athletic forward that has shown potential of being a small forward / power forward, kind of like a Kelly Oubre, but just a little bit better offensively with more versatility. But having a guy like Doc Rivers under your belt that can get the best out of him and really coach him and give him that player perspective, because he was a player, and be able to translate the game better because of that, and get him to understand the game a lot better too. Kevin Knox can really be a steal at that position, especially with the talent that he has around him. He doesn't have to do as much. He's not pressured to be great. He's not forced to be great. And he can just play his role and expand upon it as years come on, because they do have other ball handlers and other creators that can make the game easier for him too by passing on that knowledge, just like Doc Rivers. But I like that pick for them. Worst case scenario, they get a Miles Bridges, who's a guy with potential, and he's a big forward, and he's a guy that can play the 2 or the 3, and he's young. And even if they want to go, I don't see them really getting Colin Sexton unless they're going to try to go younger in the future and let like Austin and Beverly go. But Beverly is one of the better point guards in the league, not top 5, but he is a defensive guy, and he's a guy that can knock down that 3 off the ball, which is important when you got all these ball handlers. You want players to be able to knock down that 3 off the dribble. I mean, off ball, so you can have somebody to kick out to, and he's the guy that can play that 1 or 2 and guard both positions defensively and knock down that spot up 3. But you have guys like Knox, like Bridges, even like Robert Williams. They don't really have a guaranteed power forward going into the season with this Clipper team. And I think that's one thing a lot of people haven't really even thought about is Robert Williams at that 12 or 13 pick. They might be taking him a little higher than what people think, but that's a good prospect for that spot that can develop under DeAndre if he stays. And if he doesn't, he can take those minutes up. And you're getting a young guy that can really play that 4 or that 3 or that 4, but mostly that 4. And he can really have huge potential for them, especially with the other ball handlers cutting his job and making it a lot easier. Kind of like Clint Capella. He played with Dwight Howard. He played with James Harden. He was able to develop slowly, but now he's becoming potentially a max player because of his growth and his development and his patience, but also accepting his role and knowing that he can get better. And he was able to expand that while still doing what he had to do and doing what they needed him to do. He was still able to add things to his game. And I can see guys like Kevin Knox, Robert Williams, even Zaire Smith, or even going even further like Kevin Herter or even Dante DiVincenzo. I can see these guys really coming in and getting good minutes. Or even if you want to go even further with a guy like Troy Brown. So I wouldn't want to draft them that high right away. But if they trade down to get more picks or trade down to get a particular player or give up a particular player or even get somebody that can come in like a Beverly like they did last year, you can't really be mad at them for doing it because they got their coach. They got an identity last year. They got some players that know their roles, but they're not going to really sign any big name free agents this year unless Jerry West really goes hard after a particular player. But this team is starless, so if they come there, I mean, if any free agent comes here, they're going to build a brand in LA, and they might not be winning right away, and that's going to be a sacrifice probably that they're going to have to make. But Jerry West is one of the best GMs slash consultants, whatever you want to call him. He's one of the best decision makers. Helped them get Shaq when they didn't have a superstar. Helped them get draft Steph, scouted and drafted Clay, got Draymond Green late in the draft, got Patrick McCaw, found a way to get Zaza in JaVale McGee the same year, convinced Kevin Durant to come sign with them after he helped convince Steph Curry to take a pay cut. You got to give Jerry West credit. So if anybody can turn around this team, it wasn't Doc Rivers. He had Chris Paul and Blake Griffin and couldn't build a great enough bench and a great enough team to put around them, and that really hurted them in the playoffs because they had to play so many minutes. Plus, they didn't have nobody to help them win if they got injured or they got tired, so that really hurted them. But Doc Rivers do have to take some of that criticism because he was the GM too, and he didn't put enough on that bench and he didn't put enough on that roster to push them over the top to break them through a championship. Even though they did have one of the best starting fives, you still got to have a complete team, and sometimes Chris Paul and them flopped anyway. And some of the series they had injuries that you can't really control, but that's why you have other players that can come in and contribute, and I don't feel like he really did that enough when they had a championship core that can take you to that level. He didn't put enough around them. But they have been looking for a forward, so a Kevin Knox will be good. A Miles Bridges will be good potentially for them. And like I said, even you can go with a guy like Kevin or even Troy Brown or even Chandler to go down in the draft and try to grab one of these forwards that can come in, because you know that Wesley Johnson and Sam Dekker are not going to be those guys. So I don't think they're going to land a big name free agent, but even if they do, it'd be more or less. Doc Rivers is a great coach. Respect for Doc Rivers and having that cap space, but also having Jerry West, a guy that can build championship caliber teams. And if he gets you to come, you know that you have championship aspirations. Y'all can get on the same page because that's what he's all about doing, is winning championships. And he's been able to do that no matter what organization that he has went to. Even as a player, he was able to win one, and he was able to win the Finals MVP too. So that just lets you know that. So they both about winning, and they're both one of the best at their opposite positions. Plus, if they don't land the big free agent, you have 2 draft picks that really are high for your position, and you have guys at that guard and forward and possibly power forward position like Robert Williams that has that potential to come in and impact right away, but has a future to be that star that they currently don't have on this roster. And worst case scenario, you let DeAndre walks after opting in this year. You get him off the books. You get Danilo off the books, and now you either have another top 15 pick or above 15 and 15 or above. No, 15 and under. Like you get 15, then you go higher in the draft, and that's a good place to be in because now you can draft another potential top 10 player that can potentially be a star too that you can develop. So worst case scenario, you miss out on a big free agent this year. Next year, DeAndre Jordan comes off the books. Next year, Danilo almost off the books, and next thing you know, you got cap space to sign 2 max free agents, and you got a bunch of young stars that you can develop and try to turn them into get the best development out of them and see how good they are. Worst case scenario, you got a contract with a bunch of tradable players, kind of like with Boston. We can package picks, we can package players to either move up in the draft and get a star, move down in the draft and accumulate more picks to get a star through trade, or even develop these players and they become stars, or either try to trade for a star when they become available because you have enough assets to get it done. So that's the future of what the Clippers are. They haven't been able to win a championship. They had their best run just last year, these last 5 years, and they have the coach, they have the GM, they have a better owner that's willing to put the money and be patient, but also overpay players because he have enough money to do it. So they have the right organization. They going in the right direction, even though they lost 2 superstar players. But the future do look a little brighter than what people think. And like I said, worst case scenario, you get another top 10 draft pick next year if you're that bad, and you get cap relief from DeAndre and Danilo coming off. So you in play to try some players on some flyers, and on top of that, you have cap space for 2 max players in the future. So not only would you be able to develop players, but you'll be able to sign players and show them that this is LA. We have Jerry West, we have Doc Rivers, we have the cap space, and we have a new owner that's willing to put anything into this team to get it to where it has to go. Check out my website, analysisplayground.com. Link in the description, comment section below. Check out my Facebook page, analysisplayground.com. Link in the description, comment section below. Quinn Wade Basketball Analysis. I'm gone, and let me know what you think the Clippers should do, what they shouldn't do, who they should draft, who they shouldn't draft, or if they should just, blow it all up and, try to get 2 superstars all over again, whether it's through the draft or free agency or through trade. That's what I think they should do, though.